Jimmy. 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 Jimmy Dore. James T. Dore. You misquoted me, Jimmy. You misquoted me. You said correctly that the Democrats were absolutely full of it about the $2,000 and that it was a cynical marketing ploy, but you did not mention my sincere desire to see the Republicans in Georgia feel sad, Jimmy. Why was that, Jimmy? Do you not share my joy at Republican suffering, Jimmy? Is that perhaps why you apparently are forging alliances with the Boogaloo Boys, Jimmy? Jimmy, you gotta come on the show, Jimmy.
Come on the show and debate us.
James.
We'll be totally nice. There will be nothing. You can just watch this episode if you want a preview of the kind of treatment that you get. I promise it'll be very sweet. I'm not gonna get angry at all talking about people trying to form alliances with fucking fascists. No, that's not gonna upset me. In fact, today I'm proud to announce that we have a special guest coming. Charles Manson is coming to explain why the Helter Skelter movement is actually not racist.
Tell me about it.
Does that sound stupid to y'all for me to say that? Because that's what Jimmy Dore is saying when he's bringing the Boogaloo Boys on. It's the same level of stupidity. It's the same exact level of complete insanity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm gonna Iron Man this a little bit, right? And this is like the ideological inverse of a straw man, right? Let's give this the most charitable reading possible.
Sure.
This dude is trying to do the good work of converting those people to the left. The problem is that he just sort of followed them right along wherever they were leading, right? Like, he was not interacting with these people in the sort of mindful Socratic dialogue that would make it productive. He was kind of just letting them pitch everybody on fascism. And that wasn't great. That was not a great outcome.
No.
It could have been prevented by talking to a single marginalized person before you did it.
Jimmy rarely platforms.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say,
platform marginalized activists. Oh, but he'll make the effort to get some Boogaloo Boy dude with 2,000 Twitter followers on.
I'm just going to say, there are millions of people in this country that do not base their ideology on the Turner Diaries. And you would think that you might want to reach out to them before you go to those people.
Maybe. Just, I don't know. Could be a good idea. Could be better than, fucking platforming a fascist. I'm going to explain how the fascist funnel works as like the first thing that we're going to do today, because apparently a lot of people on Twitter don't know. Maybe that's the fault of people like me not educating y'all enough, although I've talked about the fascist funnel 5 to 8 times on this show, but we're going to go through it in detail today. Okay. So the way the fascist funnel works is by having people at the top who make their beliefs sound as palatable as possible. People like Magnus, this guy who went on Jimmy Dore's show. His role in the fascist project is to make fascism seem as palatable as possible. He is not going to tell you how bad fascism can be, because his goal is to raise your awareness about fascism and to get you to consider it as a possibly workable idea of some kind.
Oh, no. Kennedy, you were muted.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Gosh, sorry. I wanted to add on to that, too. Like, we do this on the left, too. That's what this show is, right? Like, we are very deliberately using this platform to advantage ourselves using known cognitive patterns like the mere exposure effect, where people feel more warmly towards ideas just by hearing them a bunch of times. Or like the bandwagon effect, where if we seem cool and chill and reasonable, then like maybe people will start listening to the rest of us too, right? Like, we're relying on exactly the same heuristics they do, but we do it mindfully and openly and transparently with like, here's our goal, here's what we're doing, here's why, right? Like, we give you a chance to consent. These people are just lying. Like, they're just absolutely lying. And their
It's like
idea
Jimmy
of
Dore has
Black
never
Lives
heard of lying
Mattering.
before.
Yeah. Well, and it's like their idea of Black Lives Mattering is something so far removed from what it actually means for a human being who is Black to have their life treated with equal value, in our culture and society. It's like the most cynical, deleterious shit to intentionally engage with these people whose job is literally to lie and not even do like a little bit of oppo first. Not even like figure out like a plan for how to like actually get to the truth of things. It's so just naive, really. But that's what happens, right? That's what happens when like white dudes who've never organized become figureheads in these kinds of movements, because like they don't know to ask other people to fill them in on things.
No.
And they don't have any direct experience to draw on. So we end up with, Jimmy Dore.
I just want to be clear about the fact that, yes, all politics involves sales funnels to some extent, but what is the goal, the end goal of that funnel? In the case of leftism, it's to get as many people on board as possible so that we can help all of them. It is a community of vulnerability. It is the idea that we all have shared needs and that we can come together in groups to solve them. That is the end result of our funnel. The end result of the fascist funnel could not be more different. It is to get a small number of people to become martyrs for their cause. They do not have the same goal even slightly. It is not about bringing large groups of people together. It is about funneling people towards extreme violence. And I'm just going to put this graphic I made up on the screen for a moment. This is the funnel of fascism. You start with people like Magnus at the top, who he gets you to be aware of the ideas, and he presents them in the most pleasant way possible by lying. Then the next stage is consideration, where you weigh out different ideas. How might some of these ideas maybe hold water or not? The next is radicalization, where they push you further into revealing their true ideas. And then once they're finally ready to reveal their full ideas to you, you're already sold. They don't tell you the full truth of what it is you're buying into until you've already bought in 100%. That's how this works. Yeah. So for them to get on TV and seem kind of nice and, have a normal conversation, y'all expect these people to talk like movie villains or something. I don't get it. These are real people who do real political strategies and have been doing the same strategies for like 100 years, and we know what they are. And this is one of them, is to lie. He is not going to call in from a James Bond super volcano and, I hate the pause. That doesn't fucking happen in real life. They lie. And anyone who's falling for it is falling for the lie.
You have to consider, tying into what you were saying, you have to consider what each person's goals are coming into this conversation. Like, what is Jimmy Dore's goal here? It's to platform a fascist and also to maybe put up the idea of allying with fascists institutionally. He's never going to convince any fascist this way. The only thing this interview serves to do is to butter up some baby leftists into thinking that fascists are okay. And this directly plays into the fascist goal, which is to make people fascists. That is the point of this interview. And if you don't think that, then you are stupid. If you don't think that the fascist was intentionally trying to present himself and lie in a way such that other people would be like, oh, that's what fascism is about. I'm going to do that. Like, fucking think about what he's trying to do here and how it plays into Jimmy Dore's just lack of any conception of impacts for his actions as a media personality.
Rachel, you're muted.
Rachel, you're muted.
It's been a minute. I'm kind of proud of me. It's like, sadly, erasing the chalkboard like days since Rachel muted herself. So, when you talk about like the teleologies of fascism and like socialism, right? Socialism is about creating equity and creating, freedom in a horizontalist capacity. Fascism is about creating perfect control. And it is based in this fundamental difference of opinion about whether people can be trusted and about whether people can be trusted to be good in particular. And do you know who the people that believe people can't be trusted are? It's the ones who lie a lot. Liars are the most untrusting people of all. So yeah, the people whose ideology is about controlling people because they can't be trusted are probably not themselves particularly trustworthy. They're projecting. They're always, always, always projecting. Always. And they don't have to know anything else because they have all the power, and all of this violence and anger and tantruming and literal murder and assault and attempted coups is all because these people would literally rather wage a war than acknowledge that they are not the center of the universe.
Yeah. And while we're talking about people's motives, I just want to say I don't know exactly what Jimmy Dore's motives are, and I'm not here to guess about those because I can't really. I don't know enough about him. I don't watch enough of his content, and I also don't know very much about him as a person. But if I wanted to destroy the left, I would be doing everything Jimmy Dore has been doing since the election.
Oh, man.
If I wanted to destroy the left...
Yeah.
Not even since the election. Like, he has been caping for fucking Tulsi Gabbard from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, where was his concern that Medicare was the most important thing when he had to choose between Bernie and Tulsi and he chose to hamstring Bernie?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Where was it then? Where was all his interest in force the vote a year ago when DSA at a national level was talking about a force the vote campaign to get Medicare for all? Where was his interest then? I'm really curious about some of these things.
I don't think we should attribute to malice what can just as easily be attributed to ignorance and laziness.
Except, I would agree with you. I would agree. Oh, someone just learned about these issues? That's fine. That happens every day in this country. Someone learns about the issues for the first time, right? But the problem is Jimmy Dore learned about force the vote for the first time and then decided that he was the true cheerleader of it, and that anybody who didn't support his specific version of force the vote was a traitor to the left. Who does that serve? Who does that serve? I want to know.
Mostly himself.
Yeah, that seems
right?
like all he's
it's just
interested
a very
in doing.
ego-oriented view of progress, right? Like, he buys into the one great man theory, and he is that great man.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, how much can we really blame a person who was indoctrinated his entire, I don't know, give or take 50 years of life to believe that he was the protagonist? You know, like, I think he's just being who he is, and I don't think that it's okay that he's doing this. I think it's inherently destructive. I agree with you, Kennedy. It could not be more destructive if it was intentional. But I hesitate to ascribe malice to what could just as easily be ascribed to, selfishness and laziness.
And even then, like, this is kind of a tangent, but Jimmy Dore has also been really against AOC. And, like, he's been saying that you can't trust AOC at her word for the things she will fight for. But you can trust fascists at their word for what they will fight for. So I'm not really sure.
It's like the manifestations of implicit bias, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just
what's your epistemology here for figuring out who is telling the fucking truth when AOC, not fascist, yes.
I mean, it's an extremely emotional position, right? And it is from a place of sort of being unchallenged, not necessarily in the sense of like intellectually, right? But just in the sense of like emotionally challenged, like forced to do constant emotional regulation, forced to really tamp yourself down and learn how to suck it up because you have to in order to survive. I don't think he's had to do a lot of that in his life. And I think that creates a kind of hubris. And it stems from this ultimate entitlement that goes back as far as patriarchy and white supremacy. Like, they're sort of each other and mutually reinforce each other. None of which is to say that I'm like okay with it or in any capacity condoning it. Again, like I think it's wildly toxic. And Jimmy, I want you to come on the show and talk to me about it because I want to literally give you the benefit of the doubt, but like
it's the
we
only
gotta
way
fucking
I
talk.
can, Jimmy. It's
Yeah.
the only way I can at this point possibly give you the benefit of any doubt would be you
Yeah.
being willing to speak to, if you're not willing to come on my show, speak to one of my friends. I don't care. This isn't about fucking the ratings or
Yeah.
whatever. But like having on a Boogaloo Boy when you've refused to have on tons of organizers who over the last few months especially have been begging you to, hey, have us on so we can talk about Medicare for all and talk about these things and talk about the kind of organizing that we do. You've been refusing to do that, acting like you were too good for it, but you'll have on a Boogaloo Boy. I don't trust you at all. And I you know, at this point, I just have to assume that there are people out there looking at the near victory of Bernie Sanders in 2020 and saying, how do we stop this? How do we make sure this doesn't happen again? Because right now, what I see coming from people like Jimmy Dore is a lot of talk about how we should never try that again. People talk a lot about not wanting to see us keep repeating the same mistakes on the left. This is repeating the same mistakes on the left. This is repeating the same mistakes. Every time the American left has come close to electing a populist in like the last 50 years that is a leftist populist, or a left-leaning populist. Bernie Sanders is not necessarily a leftist. We all know this, but he's left-leaning. Every time that we've come close, somehow the movement always gets funneled out of the Democratic Party into these weird side shoot movements that don't go anywhere, like the Green Party. Now, listen, the Democrats fucking suck, okay? We don't have to debate about this. However, the Green Party also sucks. The MPP already sucks, and it hasn't even run an election yet. I just don't... What is the goal here other than to divide people up from being a large, cohesive movement where a lot of people came together who had different beliefs, different backgrounds, different ideas, and said, yes, we are all on Team Sanders. We don't necessarily agree with him 100% or trust him 100%, but we are going to form a unified movement around this. Who benefits from breaking that up? Who? Is it us? It's not me.
Jimmy Dore has just served to pour more suckage on the general plot of American leftism.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are a lot of people who have kind of, drank the Kool-Aid a bit when it comes to just electoral politics generally and like how they work. And I think that there is a group of people who think that electoral politics are actually about the rules that are written in the books, and about like the way the law is written. And it is never actually about that. It is about the way the law is interpreted, the way the law is applied, and who is in charge of the first two. Like, that's how it actually works. That's how it's always actually worked. That's how it will always actually work, is if people organize people. So we got to cut this shit, where we're like leaning into these really obviously manufactured media narratives about who should or shouldn't be in charge, or about, whether we should or shouldn't be talking to literal fascists, right? Whether the, perfect equanimity of a white man and his, complete lack of any bias can be trusted as, fact or whatever. Like, we got to let go of it, and we got to start doing what works. We got to start focusing on like actually organizing around the things we agree on intentionally and on purpose. And this like weird petty infighting we're doing, we got to stop. We don't have time anymore. Like, we got to get serious. And at the end of the day, we're all here trying to get the same shit to work. And we don't need a Jimmy Dore to make that happen. We don't need to like suck up to the people who are actively like shitting on other people, because that makes it worse. Those people are anchors that you toss behind the ship of progress. We can definitely just cut the anchors here, and like we don't have to do it this way. And we're never going to beat them at it. We're never going to beat the Democratic Party at their own bureaucracy. It's designed to be labyrinthine and innavigable because it's alienating and it keeps power in the hands of the few people who have enough money to go to law school and spend all those extra years doing specifically just studying of law so that they can learn all of the loopholes. Speaking of which, hi Paul, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Good our legal correspondent, Paul Byron. Paul, we're talking about Jimmy Dore misquoting me, Jimmy, and also having the Boogaloo Boys on to say hello as though they're normal, rational people, and then saying they're normal, rational people afterwards, which is just, wow, that's
I just don't get it. I just don't get spending weeks making a big point about basically how we needed to purify the left. That's what Force the Vote was. It was a movement about purifying the left, cutting out all of the people who aren't sincere about this stuff, blah, blah, whatever. I don't understand going straight from that to platforming the Boogaloo Boys. I have to ask again, what is your goal? Also, Paul, you're muted.
Yeah.
Look, so two things. Up until recently, the only door Jimmy I ever knew of was the one you needed to open up the getaway car. See that? Also, you can just not take Harvard Law School seriously anymore, thanks to Alan Dershowitz and Ted Cruz. Individuals can be approached on a case-by-case basis, but the institution's over. That's fun. But I don't know. We can probably, not. I think his whole point is, as you know, ironic engagement and engagement are the same on the internet. And by golly, he's getting them clicks, isn't he, gang? I mean, we're talking about him now. As you're right.
Yeah.
Cut these fucking anchors loose. This is influencers and fucking Instagram peddlers thinking about how much of, all of this shit is based on identity as streaming personality. Like how they probably, like somebody put this together recently that probably wouldn't have stormed the Capitol if they weren't all going to stream it online.
Yeah, right.
It's its own weird whole other problem, but it's related to what is Jimmy Dore doing? Oh, well, he's getting fucking clicks. And again, I don't know who I don't actually know who he is. I know what hits the timeline and I vaguely get it, but
he's just a guy. Yeah, no, I think I first heard of him in Force the Vote. Like I'd never heard of him before that.
Same. Yeah.
He's like
not a comedian I've heard of, so that's something.
Yeah, he came up with the Young Turf or Young Turfs. Wow. Enough said, right?
Yeah, he
was Young Turks. And then was like world. Yeah, he was kind of with them, and then they weren't fashy enough, I guess. I don't know, he broke loose from them over some differences of political opinion.
Yeah, I can't tell what leftist-ish media, independent media sources I'm supposed to hate at any given moment. So I just wait for people to report things that seem like they're true and then read those.
Yeah.
I can't really prove if this is the case, but it does seem coincidental that Jimmy Dore jumped ship from TYT around the time that they started being like, hey, we probably shouldn't let people say the N-word on our show.
You feel like that's an episode 0 call, but I'm just some guy.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit.
Look, I may have completely mistaken my lack of perspective objectivity, but I think that's probably not it.
Also, I would just like to point out, Shank has had a few like white nationalists on his show over the years, and he's dunked on them. Jimmy knows how to have the kind of dialogue he's claiming he wanted to have, and instead he pretended like he didn't know how to push back on this guy. Jimmy pushes back on everyone. There's nobody on the internet that pushes back more than Jimmy Dore. Like, Am I lying?
Jimmy.
No. Like Jimmy Dore, literally, all he does is push back on everyone. He pushed back on his allies during the force the vote thing in meetings all the time. People that he said were his best friends that he respected. People that in turn said they respected him. People like Katie Halper, who said it's fine that Jimmy Dore treated me this way. She even defended it, which is her choice. But the point is that he's willing to push back on his best friends and be a dick to them, but he couldn't find one dickish thing to say to the Boogaloo Boy.
James Patrick Anthony Dore.
Wait, really?
I looked. That is his real name.
No.
James T. Patrick Edward Anthony Dore. We gotta have a talk. You gotta come on the show.
Every time you say it, you gotta put more names in there.
He's not coming on.
Jimmy, you gotta come on the show.
First of all, he would never do it. Second of all, I'm not actually sure I could sign off on it the more I think about it. Like, this dude is going to just use us for clicks too, right?
Yeah, but we also get clicks in this scenario.
But we won't get the second follow back. We won't get the secondary clicks. It's just for the Jimmy Dore episode. Like, yeah.
I'd rather get the clicks. I'd rather get the clicks from someone like Nomiki, who I also disagree with, but at least can stand.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you there. I'm with you there. Mostly, I just want to be mean to him after he misquoted me. He brought me on the show. He didn't even mention we're podcasters.
You've been on the
show.
Rude.
Very rude.
I was on his show. He misquoted me. He took out the coolest part of what I said.
I was laughing my ass off when I read that.
Yeah, everybody loved that because it was funny. Thank you, Brandon. I definitely stole the joke from you. I'm sorry that it went down like this and that I jacked you.
Yeah.
But he just kind of glossed over those parts and literally only took the one thing I said that agreed with his point and paraphrased it. It was weird, Jimmy. It was weird of you to do that. And I think you should come answer for your fucking crimes, my dude. Like, it's just like, surely you're not afraid of me. You already had me on your show.
That's frightening face when you say that. You gotta try and lure the mark in. You can't just like, hey, come here, Rube. This is definitely not a scat. You gotta like,
Honestly, even if he agreed to come on this show, he isn't gonna watch it.
Hell yeah, I've never been podcasting before. Is it fun?
Like, this dude literally, he's not gonna watch this.
You say Jimmy's not afraid of you, but I've seen quite a bit of evidence over the last few weeks that Jimmy is afraid of strong women in politics. So,
yeah, that is true.
Well, and I have certainly laid waste to at least one or two men on the internet since y'all knew me. So.
We love that about
he might have seen some of those posts where you just drag a dude for being a straight white male idiot, and he's like, "Uh-oh, I could be the dude."
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because I kind of wanted to bring that back around to the forefront, and it's a great segue that perhaps we should talk about after a brief break. But there seems to be a contingent. And I think this is in every iteration of the left, including the modern one, of people who feel like the left is going too far and they're getting left behind and their interests aren't being centered enough. And instead of like updating their processes, they're kind of just old and crotchety and double down. And I think this might be just like a universal generational thing as a function of age, but it could also be, weird cohort stuff. I don't know, but let's dig into it after a break. Sound good? Cool. I'm still on my phone, so I'm gonna have to ask somebody else to drop that though.
I don't actually know. Yeah,
I see how it is.
We'll be in a second.
Listen. people are just white guys? Or is it just old white guys?
I'm approaching the person with subject matter expertise on this as, well, I like to think I'm aging gracefully, but we'll figure that out. I mean, like, and am I being an old about this is absolutely something we all have to approach. It's like, oh, the young people are doing sex or swearing or music or dancing in a way that's different from how I did it is always an impulse. Because yeah, they're gonna, and they found a new hole or whatever. Get on board. Fucking, or just don't be a fucking swear about it. Is like one. But also old and statistically old white guys with access to all of the money get to be older longer. And we're also have been in charge of everything for the entire time. Like the old guys that were old guys when they were fighting the civil rights movement are the same old guys that are now. Strom Thurmond only died recently. Like these guys,
Yeah, we live in quite the cesspool, don't we?
The bed that's been made and now laid in and shat in and rolled around in several times. And we're going to restore American leadership by changing the sheets, but the mattress is full of dead sex worker.
Yeah.
Or just regular person, whoever. It could have been anybody.
Can't get that staked out.
It was more statistically likely to be.
They do more
marginalized people, including sex workers.
Yeah.
Nature of the work.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of
who the system grinds up, you know, and I think that's all really relevant to what we're talking about today too, because I think Jimmy Dore, it's easier for him to platform a fascist because it doesn't threaten him, right?
Yeah.
Well, they can't. Yeah. They're going to have the same critique that everyone has of whatever he's doing, which Medicare for all, can't do that. All right, everyone said like 75% of the thing says that. So
yeah, there's a specific type of underdeveloped male emotional maturity that
this makes me angry.
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's this sort of reaction to feeling like defensive or corrected that is really, really exaggerated. And like it's like an affront, right? Like it's not enough that like, it's a correction, but it's also a humiliation necessarily. And honestly, I really like there's nothing we can do from the outside to make that work better. We coddle them a lot. We coddle them a lot because we understand, like, oh, that's just it. They can't really do better. They don't know how to be more emotionally mature than this. And it results in these weird, effortful, annoying kinds of interactions where, like, you have to do triple duty just talking to them about, like, anything. Because you're managing your feelings, you're managing their feelings, and you're also trying to get through to them. And it's fucking exhausting. And they get so, and it's almost like self-reinforcing, because if you start winning the argument too overtly, they'll shut down because it's like an extra affront that you're a marginalized person getting one over on them, right? And it's just, I'm so exhausted by it. I think it's really boring and unhelpful.
Straight male culture in America is to attempt to achieve some type of stoicism and then to believe that you've achieved it, regardless of how emotional you actually are. But to just believe that like you did that, you're a hard son of a bitch who doesn't show his emotions just like grandpa or whatever.
John Wayne, America's grandpa.
Yeah. And so like there's this whole group of people in this country that have been made to believe that their ideas are more accurate than everybody else's on a societal level, but also on this internal level of believing that they themselves have purged themselves of unnecessary emotion and that they function in a world of logic. That's the world of the old white man that these people think that they are, defending. And when you attack that, they part of the problem is they tend to believe that you are attacking logic with emotions necessarily.
Yeah.
No matter what your stance is and no matter what their stance is. So you could be talking to the straight man who is convinced that something wildly emotional is true and trying to present them evidence, but in his mind, it's still going to be the emotional person trying to sway me from my logic with their emotions.
Look, I'm just trying to explain that American culture has been experiencing a system of degradation in terms of moral content, and this is why we need an extremely regressive social structure. I don't see what's illogical about that. And so, I mean, it is ultimately that. Like, that logic is what holds up the court system, but the court system ignores the history in which it is entrenched.
Well, and it all comes from rationalism, right? From like Rene Descartes and like that very like
Rene, too coward to say there's no God, Descartes.
yeah, basically.
Fair.
Like, yeah, but I mean, it is, it was right at sort of the peak of white male power, right? It was like that moment in time when rationalism arose and they had, conquered the world, including all of the people in it who were already there.
I'm just going to say it like it is. Rene Descartes was an unfunctional man baby that wrote an entire philosophy to justify being a man baby and died of being a man baby.
And Immanuel Kant never had any.
Right. Well, and so, we're using this incredibly overbaked philosophy that like really stopped being useful, I don't know, 170 years ago at least, right?
Through the church as major governing body.
Yeah, right. And so, when you stopped needing people to prove that there was a God and that he was a white guy to maintain your power, you kind of stopped needing this weird, rational reductionism thing that they do. But unfortunately, because of, white heteropatriarchy, we're in this weird situation where it still has all the power. And we're still like actively trying to update it to the new information we have learned and developed and applied to our reasoning and our strategies in the last, 70 years or so, because like their heads live permanently in their asses.
I still stand by the fact that Descartes was a man baby who died of being a man baby.
I do. Tell the people why, because this is good. I laughed very hard at this, but I'm a nerd.
Rene Descartes died of preventable illness because he did not want to be a weakling who needed treatment. That was like it was
basically Steve
masculinity.
Jobs.
Yeah. No, he was worse than Steve Jobs because Steve Jobs was a crackpot who thought he could cure his illness through bizarre alternative treatment. That's insane in its own way, but he at least admitted that he needed a treatment to survive.
Right.
Rene Descartes was in that full toxic masculinity, rub some dirt on it mentality, and it literally killed him.
I mean,
there's a lot of hubris in the philosophical tradition. There's a lot of dudes who die in really unnecessary ways.
Well, I want to say
can't imagine what it is about specifically dudes who write philosophy and
there's a lot of
dying for stubbornness. Go on.
Fails this. Okay, so like let's imagine we're living in the pre-industrial age and so you're literate, you have time to sit around and read and write, but you are not doing anything. See, because your first son is going to be sent to like run a business, oversee a land. Second son, maybe the military. Like this is like third son, fourth son problems type shit. Like the clergy can't have you, military won't take you, or we've already sent one, and the actual firstborn is already doing the business, or you're just too sickly to do it, so you stay inside and read all the time, and you come out with this extremely intricate and arcane system of because you have to. Again, you have to sort of caveat the omnipotent, omnibenevolent, omniscient God to just do any of the philosophy, whose main question is, does that exist? And then the answer is, well, it has to, because otherwise they won't let me put the book out.
I mean, yeah, right? That's like...
And it's very, it creates...
It's tautological, Like it's this recursive cycle of justifying being in charge because you are simply obeying the orders of the next guy up in the line. And then you just abstract that into an omnipotent deity who's telling you that you're in charge of everything, and there it is. There's no one to argue with anymore. You're just in charge. Sorry, the management did it this way. I just work here. It's fucking dudes still do this all kinds of ways. People still do this all kinds of ways. Like this is just being irrational and refusing to admit it. Anyway, I'm tired. It's been a week.
It's been a week.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a week.
Mm-hmm. It's Monday.
Yeah,
It's been a week.
I mean, I guess it's always been a week, I guess, but since the
Yeah.
last.
It's been a year and it's still January. What a world. What a world.
I posted on Twitter the other day, damn, can't believe the Capitol Hill riots were already a year ago. Because that's how it feels to me.
Yeah, God, it's just wild. We live in times of change, which are just terrible. Change sucks, is what I figured out. I can see now why people do so much to avoid it, because it sucks, actually.
Hang on, you're starting to sound like an old. Remember what
I know. I mean, I still think the change needs to happen. I'm just acknowledging that the process is unpleasant.
you can do, really. I mean,
anyway, this is a chipper episode for everybody. I don't know what else to talk about. I'm tired.
Let's get out of here. Fuck it.
Yeah, fuck it.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. I appreciate everybody that chooses our show over Jimmy Dore. You're making the right choice.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it is a binary choice. You can't have both. I'm sorry. Patreon.com/notsafe if you want to support the show, at nsfwonks on Twitter, etc., etc.
Keep your eyes open. On Friday, we're launching a new show with Ada Powers. It is called Post Tech Radio, and it is about how we can use science and technology to get us from here to the gay space communist utopian future we crave.
and also how to screw over your
Yes, and also incidentally, Paul and I have a podcast, season 1 coming out soon, called Gay Space Communism, where we talk about Star Trek and how it inspires, the same exact technological advancements we were just talking about. It's all very simpatico.
Yay.
Mm-hmm.
Also slag it off for being like the West Wing.
I mean, it kind of is. It is. It's a little bit West Wing.
Okay, if you don't hate the things you love, you don't actually love them.
Mm-hmm. I think this is the true nature of love.
Called knowing things, truly. Goodbye.
It's also hatred. Goodbye, everyone. It's like the joke about